Your thoughts can drift like mist curling through pine trees at dawn. Tonight, we go back, not to the fields, or the battlefield, or even the village roads. Tonight, we step into the cloistered quiet of a palace, a place of ritual, rhythm, and remembered footsteps. A place where time was kept not by clocks, but by bells, bows, and ink on parchment. Imagine a 10th century Korean palace, the heart of the Goryeo Dynasty. The walls are high, curved with tiled rooftops that seem to breathe with the wind. The halls echo not with shouting, but with the hush of silk brushing polished wood. Every gesture has meaning, even silence has posture and mistakes. They are not scolded, they are recorded. We will move through this world gently. We will meet those who cleaned its marble steps, those who bowed without end, those who painted the skies onto pottery, and those who dined behind silken curtains while others swept outside. Let your shoulders sink, let your breathing slow. The lanterns are being lit now, one by one, and the paper doors are closing. You are ready. You wake before the birds. The room is dark, but the paper doors glow faintly with the blue of early sky. You sit up slowly on your reed mat, muscles aching in ways that don't surprise you anymore. The mat smells faintly of smoke and rice, and your hands are already moving, pulling on your rough linen robe before thought has even caught up. Outside your tiny quarters, the palace is asleep. But not really. It never truly sleeps. Somewhere, a lantern still flickers in the inner court. Somewhere, a scroll is being quietly copied. But here, in your corner of the lower servants' wing, there is only cold, your breath rising like steam in the chill air, and the sound of your footsteps, careful and soft. You begin with the walkways, long planks of polished wood that stretch like ribs through the palace grounds. They must shine like water before the court awakens. You kneel, cloth in hand, and begin to scrub, not with soap, not with warm water, but with rice bran paste and elbow grease, because it brings out the wood's natural glow, and that's what matters here. Every inch is watched, every corner has memory. Your knees ache, the stone underneath is unyielding. Your breath makes little clouds. You are not alone. Others work alongside you, silent as ghosts, each with their task. One sweeps pine needles, another rinses copper trays. No one speaks. There is no need. There is only routine and the rhythm of damp cloth against polished wood. As the sun rises, the palace comes alive in the quietest way. You hear the rustle of silks, distant sandals on wood. The court ladies begin their day. Hair already combed, posture already perfect. They do not see you, not truly. They pass with eyes lowered, not from shame, but from training. You are the part of the palace that is seen only in its absence, the invisible clean. You finish the walkway. Your arms burn, but there's no time to rest. The lotus pond is waiting. Algae has crept up its stone edges again, and the bridge, the Empress's bridge, must gleam like ivory. You wade in knee-deep, your pants rolled, the water numbing your calves. You scrub with bamboo brushes. You hum quietly, so the koi come near. They do not know rank, only motion. The scent of pine resin and cold water fills your lungs. The morning light bends through the willow trees. A court poet, somewhere above, is already composing verses you'll never hear. You wonder if anyone has ever written one about you. By mid-morning, you're in the inner halls. These are sacred places, where the footfalls of ministers echo and the scrolls of law are housed. You are permitted only with supervision. Your broom moves like a whisper. One wrong noise, and you will be dismissed, sent back to the kitchens, or worse, the gatehouse. You do not let the broom bristle, and then the shoes come. Flat, black silk shoes with white socks. A noblewoman gliding past, her sleeves long enough to touch the floor. She says nothing, but you lower your eyes, not because you're unworthy, but because you are trained. To meet her gaze is to break a rule etched deeper than ink. Afternoon comes, the sun climbs, and so do the duties. You now carry the ash buckets, from the heating rooms to the kitchens and back again. The stoves use hardwood, and the ash is fine as powder. It clings to your robe, your arms, your hair. When you cough, it tastes faintly sweet. No one sees this job. But if you forget, the noble baths grow cold, and someone will notice. You pause once, near the west wall. A small garden, mostly unused, stretches into silence. You sit on a stone for just a moment. The bell for second meals hasn't rung yet. You take one deep breath. The scent of juniper and old rain lingers in the soil. But rest is short. You return to the courtyard, just in time to refill the lanterns with oil. The sky is turning that pale golden color, the one that makes the tiled rooftops look like dragon scales. You light the first wick, it sputters. You protect it from the wind with your sleeve, and then you move to the next. By nightfall, your hands are cracked, your robe is damp, and your feet ache with the kind of pain that doesn't go away. Not even with rest. You return to your room. No words are spoken. The other cleaners are already asleep or pretending. You lie down, staring at the paper ceiling. The palace is quiet again. Outside, somewhere, a drum taps once. A courtier is late. You smile faintly, eyes closing. At least that mistake wasn't yours. Imagine your life ruled by parchment, ink-stained hands. Long hours spent, not in motion, but in stillness. Not laboring in the fields, not training with weapons, but watching, quietly, endlessly, and writing it all down. You are the royal scribe of the Goryeo court, not a poet, not a minister. You do not speak in court. You do not offer opinions. You do not negotiate or advise. You record. Every morning, just before the third bell rings and the east gardens are awash in pale gray light, you begin your work. You rise before the palace stirs. Your room is plain. One inkstone, one low desk, a cot filled with straw, and a few small scrolls you are allowed to keep for study. One depicts court etiquette diagrams. Another lists honorifics by rank. Another is blank, saved for personal reflections you rarely write. You dress carefully. Your robes are not those of nobility, but neither are they those of a servant. Dark blue with clean edges, a sash that identifies your office. Your hair is tied back with simplicity. You carry no weapon, only a case of brushes. Each four different kinds of script, and a sealed ink pot with red lacquer inlay. The ink must never spill. The morning begins with the procession, a quiet line of nobles, ministers, and court scholars walking through the corridor of pines that leads to the Empress's audience hall. You walk parallel to them in the shadows. You count the footsteps, not for curiosity, for documentation. The order of entrance is recorded, the time is noted. The spacing between bows is written. A courtier who steps too early, a minister who hesitates too long. It is not your place to reprimand, only to remember, and so you do. With brush in hand, on thin parchment backed with wood to keep it from fluttering, You begin to write. Third watch, seventh bell. Minister of Appointments entered hall. Bowed once to Prime Minister. 5 steps apart. Eye contact. Brief. No deviation from script. You are not to look directly at the Empress, but you sense her presence from the way others move. She sits in stillness, her breath barely noticeable beneath robes that weigh more than you do. You listen as greetings are exchanged, formal, measured, like watching the tide go in and out. Always the same, never truly the same. You keep writing. You do not eat until midday, but by then your right hand aches. The ink on your fingers has left a faint imprint on your sleeve. You soak your brush, clean the tip, and unroll a fresh page. Lunch is served in silence. Plain rice, a bit of pickled radish, and thin soup with seaweed. A quiet meal is a virtue. You chew slowly. The soup is warm, not hot. Then back to the hall. The afternoon session is longer. More bows, more speeches. You record all of them. The way the courtier's voice cracked. The way one noble forgot a title and paused. A flicker in the Empress's gaze. A nod from a general. You do not interpret. You transcribe. Sometimes you wonder who will read your records. Ministers, historians, no one, perhaps no one. But that is not your concern. Your concern is accuracy and memory. Evening falls slowly, like ink bleeding into cloth. The ceremony of gratitude begins. One by one, attendants present gifts of words, poems, tokens, scrolls, crafted fans. You note each offering, who gave it, to whom, what it represented, how it was received. A poor gift may be remembered more than a good one. You note that too. As you write, you feel the hours wrap around you like a cloak. This is not just routine, it is your rhythm. The silence of the hall, the rustle of silk, the gentle scrape of sandals, the occasional cough quickly hidden, the clink of porcelain when tea is served. These are your markers, not bells, not clocks, sounds and absences. When the ceremony ends, you bow low, though no one notices, and return to your chamber. The walk back is quiet. You nod politely to passing guards. You step over a cat that has made a habit of lounging near the library steps. It blinks at you, then closes its eyes. Back in your room, you begin the final duty, copying the day's records into the main archive scroll. The room is lit with a single lamp. Your shadow moves slowly across the paper, following your brush. You write carefully. You are tired, but this cannot wait. Your script must remain even. No wavering lines, no accidental strokes. A miswritten name can change an entire record. A smeared title can become a scandal. You dip the brush again. The ink smells of pine soot and something faintly bitter. It clings to your fingertips. Somewhere outside, a flute plays softly, perhaps from the outer gates, where guards pass the time. You do not stop writing. 4,000 bows this month. You've counted each one, not because it matters to you, but because someone will ask someday, and when they do, your scroll will answer. By the time you finish, the lamp is low. Your eyes sting. You roll the scroll, seal it with wax, and place it in the chest beneath your bed. Another day recorded, another tide observed. You lie back on your mat. It creaks faintly. The ceiling blurs into darkness. You do not dream of the Empress, or the ministers, or even the cat. You dream of ink. Imagine a bowl, round, simple, cool to the touch. It is not gold, it is not jeweled. But when the morning light strikes its curved edge, It glows with a color that no name fully contains. Not blue, not green, somewhere between mist and moonlight. This is Celadon. To see it is to feel calm, to understand it. That takes time and patience and fire. You are not a noble, not a scholar. You live not in palaces, but in a quiet valley far to the south of the capital, where rivers wind through rice paddies and hills breathe mist with each dawn. And here, you are part of a lineage, not of warriors or scribes, but of potters. Your kill stands like a sleeping beast. Stone walls built with care, a chimney tall enough to whisper to clouds. Beside it, stacked carefully, are shelves of raw bowls and plates, unglazed, waiting. Every one of them shaped by your hands, or your father's, or your son's, or your mother's, who worked without acclaim, but with great skill, shaping clay with thumbs as steady as prayer. The clay itself is a gift, dug from the riverbank, sifted through cloth, kneaded underfoot until soft as dough. You touch it with reverence. You turn it on a slow wheel, the rhythm known to your muscles, even when your mind wanders. Each bowl must be the right thickness. Too thick, and it may crack. Too thin, and it may warp. You do not measure with rulers. You measure with feel and memory. Once shaped, the bowls are left to dry, not under the sun, never that. Instead, they rest in shade, where air moves slowly. You check them by touch. Still damp, they wait, smooth to the skin. Then it is time. The glaze is the mystery. You do not know its chemistry. You know its rhythm. Ash, limestone, a slip of refined clay, sometimes powdered feldspar, all ground fine, mixed with water, stirred for hours. You dip your fingers into the basin and lift them. If the glaze clings in a thin, milky film, good. If it slides off like rain on a leaf, too thin. If it crusts like rice left in the pot, too thick, you adjust, add water, add powder, stir again. You speak little during this. Words distract the glaze, so you say, each bowl is dipped with care. No dripping, no pooling at the base. You turn the bowl slowly. The glaze catches the light like liquid jade, but it is not yet what it will become. Now, the fire. The kill is stoked with pine logs, dry, split, aged for a year. The fire must rise slowly. Too hot, too fast, and the glaze shivers, cracks. You feed the fire in silence. You watch the heat with your skin. The potter's eye is not in the face, it's in the arms, the nose, the palms. You feel the temperature. You listen to the draft. The flame speaks in tongues only years can translate. Once the fire is steady, the pots go in. You use a long wooden paddle, each bowl placed carefully, not touching. Each shelf stacked so heat flows like wind through reeds, slow, even, steady. The firing lasts hours, sometimes days. You nap beside the kill, rising every hour to feed it. Your clothes smell of smoke, your hair holds ash, your eyes sting, but you do not complain. You are watching a secret be born. And then it's time. The fire dims, the logs run low. You seal the kill, not tightly, but enough. You let it cool for a day, maybe two. The hardest part is waiting. When you unseal the kill, the air that escapes smells of stone and earth and something faintly sweet. The bowls are no longer brown, no longer dull. They are celadon, soft green, gray blue, a color that changes with the light, that ripples where glaze pooled slightly, that cracks gently like old ice in patterns called crackler, prized, not feared. You hold one bowl to the sky. It catches morning sun and shimmers. You turn it. It glows like fog lit from within. No two are the same. This is not just pottery. This is prayer. This is mystery. This is ritual. You carry the best ones to the market or to the palace if a merchant has been kind enough to ask on your behalf. The nobles do not know your name, but they sip tea from your hands. Some say the glaze was invented by accident, ash falling into clay, melting in the fire. Others say it was whispered by spirits of river mist. You do not argue, you do not explain. You fire, you wait, you glaze again. Some days the kill disappoints, the glaze dulls, or turns yellow, or bubbles where it should be smooth. You sigh, you begin again, you dream of bowls, not gold, not jeweled, just silence, shaped. Imagine a gate, not large, not towering, but carved with delicate scrollwork, peonies, clouds, cranes in flight. The wood is polished, smooth, almost reflective. It opens not with fanfare, but with a soft creak, like a bow drawn across an old instrument. Beyond it lies the Empress's garden. You are not supposed to enter. You are a servant, perhaps, or a scribe. Perhaps you only sweep the stone paths in early morning hours before the first robe brushes over the gravel. But imagine you are here just for a moment as the garden wakes. The light filters through silk-screened partitions and woven reed shades. The air smells faintly of pine needles, warmed by the sun but shaded by branches older than the dynasty itself. Not a bird sings loudly, only the soft coo of doves. The gravel has been raked already in precise lines and circles, concentric, deliberate. No one ever walks directly across it. To do so would be to disturb the peace that has taken hours to place. At the edge of a shallow pond, the lotus leaves have unfurled. Their surfaces are waxy, repelling dew. Beneath them swim golden carp, slow and fat. Occasionally, one opens its mouth just above the surface, not gasping, just breathing in time with the water. A white crane lands on the far stone. It steps with the solemn care of someone rehearsing each move. It tilts its head once, twice, then begins to dance. Not a show, not for applause, just movement, because it must. The Empress is not yet present, but her presence is everywhere. In the low, curved benches, shaped not for rest, but for posture. In the scent of sandalwood burning from a hidden brazier. In the silver trays that line a shaded corridor, each holding delicacies so precise you almost fear to breathe near them. Cucumber slices, peeled so finely they shimmer. Radishes carved into plum blossoms. A bowl of spring water, clear and still, with 2 floating petals. A rice cake, dusted with powdered green tea. The Empress will not eat them all, perhaps none, but they must be there, fresh, cold, unchanged from the moment of offering. Attendants move without speaking. They wear soft shoes so as not to disturb the gravel. Their robes are not elaborate, not like the Empress's, but each fold is deliberate. They hold fans, not for themselves, but for her, should she request a breeze. Some stand with umbrellas, though the sun is mild. One holds a scroll, a poem perhaps, or a letter. Another carries a cage, light bamboo, with a songbird inside, who will not sing until the Empress arrives. And then, a hush deeper than silence. She steps forward. Her robe is seafoam green, with embroidery so delicate it seems to shift as she moves. Cranes in flight, pine branches trailing behind. Her hair is piled high, pinned with jade and pearl, not a strand out of place. Her face is serene, not smiling, not frowning, just present. She walks slowly, not out of frailty, but out of choice. Each footstep measured, heel to toe. Her sleeve brushes a leaf, and it trembles as if honored. She sits upon a stool lacquered in black and gold, legs tucked just so. An attendant steps forward with tea, not too hot, not too cool, in a celadon bowl, smooth and pale. She lifts it with both hands, bows her head once, and sips. A pause, a breath. This is power, not shouted, not brandished, but wrapped in ritual and silence. The Empress speaks little, and when she does, her words are few. A comment on the crane, a note about the chrysanthemum's late bloom, a question about the rain 3 nights ago. Each phrase is a pebble in a still pool. Her ladies in waiting respond with bowed heads, sometimes with poetry. No laughter, no idle chatter. All tones remain soft. No one looks directly unless summoned. You, if you are present, remain still. You have become part of the background, like a tree, like the raked gravel. You are invisible, and yet every step you took this morning, every tray you wiped clean, every stone you aligned just so, has led to this. The Empress finishes her tea. She stands. Her walk continues through the garden, past the stone lantern, past the carp who do not stir, past the pine whose scent lingers on the sleeve of her robe. She disappears behind a curtain of wisteria, lavender flowers swaying in her wake, and the garden breathes again. The attendants exhale. The bird begins to sing. The trays are collected, inspected, and returned to the kitchens. The crane flaps its wings and lifts into the air, its shadow skimming the pond. You return to your sweeping boo now. Each grain of gravel has meaning. Each path has been blessed by passage. You do not speak. There is no need. In the Goryeo palace, silence is not emptiness. It is structure. It is memory. It is power in its gentlest form. And the Empress's garden remains, not for spectacle, not for pleasure, but as a living manuscript, a poem made of stone, pine, silk, and air. As the sun shifts higher, the colors soften, shadows stretch. You continue sweeping. The rhythm of your work matches the rhythm of the cranes, of the koi, of the chimes. Time passes unseen, unheard, but it passes all the same. You enter the palace's quietest wing, where the stone feels cooler, the steps softer, and the air carries the faintest smell of soot, ink, and old paper. This is the ink room, not a library, not a scriptorium, but a sanctum of silence, where words are born with brushes instead of voices, where even history dares not shout. Imagine yourself walking slowly between low wooden tables. Each is stained with circles of black and blue, each attended by a man or woman hunched in stillness, sleeves folded, eyes narrowed in monk-like focus. Here they write, not hurriedly, never noisily, but with the soft strokes of tradition, the steady rhythm of ceremonial accuracy. You sit at a stool that has molded itself to centuries of backs like yours. The inkstone waits before you, glistening. A single drop of water slides down the hollow, carved in its center, mixing with powdered soot. Soot made from burnt pine, collected carefully, crushed with patience, refined with care. The brush rests beside it, its handle of bamboo, its bristles of rabbit fur, cut evenly, waiting. You begin, as every recorder does, by grinding. Circles, slow circles. The stone hums beneath the brush's wooden body. The ink slowly blooming from black dust into gleaming fluid. You grind longer than needed, because that's what is expected, because haste is a whisper of failure. You dip the brush, then pause, because in this room you do not simply write, you perform. Your back is straight. Your left hand rests like porcelain. Your breath slows. The bamboo slip before you, pale, smooth, slightly curved, carries the weight of the royal house. What you write must last longer than you. What you forget might vanish forever. You begin with the date, always the date, the rain year, the phase of the moon, the season of the plum blossoms, or the dormancy of the pines. Then you begin to write the events of the morning. Who bowed? How many times? Which titles were invoked? Which silences lingered? You record when the empress's scarf shifted. You record when the minister of rights coughed too soon. You record the shape of the emperor's smile, whether it was solemn or weary, not because you are poetic, but because that, too, is policy. Across the room, another scribe dips his brush. He is working on punishments, on missteps, on the errors that will be reviewed at dusk. He does not meet your eyes. No one speaks. When the midday bell sounds, not a loud gong, but a subtle chime like porcelain against brass, you rest your brush and stretch your fingers. Your back aches, not from weight, but from posture. You are permitted tea. It is lukewarm, poured from a clay teapot shaped like a crane. No one slurps, no one sighs. The pages dry beside you, not white, a soft yellow, kissed by rice, thick with fiber. The brush left trails like wind through reeds. You read it back, lips closed, nodding at each character. They will be sealed in scrolls, one for the palace, one for the city archive, one perhaps for the imperial vaults. When you return, you are assigned to copy a poem, an ancient one, perhaps from the time before this dynasty, not for beauty, but for practice. Poetry trains steadiness, flow, memory. There is one about the cranes that watch the moonrise, or the willow that forgets its own age. You trace the strokes, not to feel emotion, but to ensure your lines don't waver. If they waver, someone will notice. If someone notices, someone will record it, somewhere. Late in the afternoon, a small boy brings a folded note, not addressed, just placed on the corner of your table. It is a change to a record. An official was misidentified. His title omitted a syllable. You bow to the note, correct it in silence. The old scroll is burned, a slow, respectful flame. Even mistakes are released with grace. As evening approaches, the ink room begins to glow, not with lamps, but with reflection. The polished stones, the pale slips, the sheen of finished work. It becomes a room of silver and smoke. You close your ink pot, rinse your brush, lay it flat on the cloth. The bamboo bends, but never breaks. You walk out with your head low, not in shame, but in serenity. You have said everything without a voice. You have captured a day in history with a flick of fur and breath. And tomorrow you will return and begin again, not because it is exciting, but because the kingdom depends on your quiet. As the hall behind you fades, you wonder if your brush left behind anything at all. And yet, you know, it left everything. The morning air carries a different scent today. Not rice, steam, or lacquered wood, but something gentler, a faint sweetness, like flowers crushed between pages, or herbs wrapped in silk. That scent doesn't come from the garden. It comes from the ink. You're inside the hall of correspondence, a long, bright chamber near the Empress's quarters, where couriers never speak above a whisper, and each letter travels farther than most feet ever will. The day begins not with ink, but with scent. The paper is pressed flat with polished stones. Slips are fanned out on the low table, light enough to move with a sigh. The room glows pale gold, not from fire, but from the way sunlight filters through rice paper windows. Each letter must look like the palace itself, measured, precise, and delicate without weakness. You take a bundle of blank parchment, not made from wood pulp, but from mulberry bark, boiled and beaten until it resembles cloudskin. It's soft, smooth, forgiving, and it smells of nothing. At least until you gently brush a mixture onto it. A secret blend of plum blossom oil, ginger root, and a whisper of camphor. Just enough to leave a trace, a memory of where it came from. A royal letter is not meant to be read quickly. It is not meant to surprise or scold. It is meant to unfold, one line at a time, like a gate opening or a petal turning to face the light. Each character matters. Each word must bow to the next. You write slowly, not for lack of speed, but because the words have already been chosen. The court poets have refined them. The ministers have debated their phrasing. You simply give them form. The emperor's letter to the provincial governor, the empress's note to her cousin's consort, an order to send silkworms north, a blessing for a new temple bell. All of it passes through your brush, and for each letter there is a seal. The seal is not merely pressed, it is placed like a kiss, a stone stamp carved with dragon claws, phoenix wings, or clouds trailing into nothing. Red ink made from crushed cinnabar, carefully applied, then marked onto the paper with just enough pressure to say, "This is truth, and it is final." Some seals are rectangular, others oval. The most sacred ones are stored in small boxes of sandalwood, guarded not with swords, but with rituals. Before you touch them, you wash your hands, not because they are dirty, but because the seal must never hold a fingerprint. Across the room, another scribe carefully folds a letter for travel. It must be wrapped in silk, not tied with string, but held by a weight, a tiny jade bead, a sliver of bone, or a fragrant chip of incense wood. Each letter is not only read, but smelled. Before the eyes see it, the nose knows where it came from. Messages within the palace are folded tighter, delivered not by messengers, but by attendants who bow at every door. Some are not even opened, just understood by scent, texture, or weight. You take a break beside the window. Outside, the garden is still. A crane walks past the pond. You sip barley tea and let your eyes rest on the plum trees. Their blossoms are late this year, but no one says so aloud. The trees will bloom when ready, like letters written with care. By the time dusk arrives, your fingers are stained faint red, not from blood, not from ink, but from all the stamps you've pressed, the envelopes you've sealed. You write the last line of the last letter. May your roof hold against the winds, and your house be full of quiet. You exhale and blot the corner of the scroll. You light a single stick of incense before leaving, not for prayer, but to bless the silence. As the evening bells echo across the roof tiles, you wonder how many of your letters were opened, read, understood. Perhaps none, perhaps all. Perhaps they are still waiting, folded neatly in another hall, another country, another year. You may never know, but your words are out there, perfumed and wandering. Imagine a narrow corridor that does unlead to a garden or a throne room, but to a quieter, more overlooked chamber. You wouldn't find it on a tour of the palace. It sits to the side of the storerooms and kitchens, with no tapestries on the walls and no scent of incense in the air. The floor creaks just slightly, and the windows are fewer. But inside, this quiet room holds the weight of the entire kingdom, not in gold, but in numbers. This is the financial heart of the 10th century Goryeo Palace, not a treasury of coins, but of calculations. You wake with the others long before the sun touches the courtyard stones. You do not rise to pray or to prepare feasts. You rise to count grain tallies, silk quotas, charcoal orders, oil rations, lamp wick lengths. You are a clerk of royal balance sheets, and today, like all days, is a day for ink. Your tools are humble, scrolls of paper marked with faint red guidelines, soft brushes trimmed short for tiny script, and stone inkwells ground every morning with slow, circular precision. Your hands are not calloused like a gardener's, but they are stained, dark rings at the fingertips, a permanent smudge at the edge of your palm, the marks of quiet work. The palace eats more than it sings. Each royal meal, though silent and refined, must be accounted for. How many sacks of rice were milled today? How many ducks arrived from the countryside? Were the lotus roots to light this time, or were they soaked too long and weighed more than expected? You check the ledgers from the kitchen steward, a series of pages filled with delicate numbers, lines crossing through figures where estimates were too generous. You correct them with soft brushstrokes, never with anger. No one shouts in this room. Even mistakes are made gently. There are separate scrolls for ceremonial items, new silk robes requested by the Empress's chamberlain, candles for the Mid-Autumn festival, fine clay jars of plum wine to be gifted to a visiting scholar from Silla. Each item is entered in a different shade of ink, a different style of notation. Even the numbers have their own hierarchy here. At mid-morning, you step into the storeroom to verify an order. It's cool inside. The floors are stone, the shelves stacked high with sacks marked in blue dye, rice, barley, millet, and sesame. You press your hand to one sack, full, just as it should be. The weigher bows beside you and records the tally. Neither of you speak. Behind the rice sit rarer items, cords of silk dyed in imperial blue, sealed jars of oil rendered from pine resin, and boxes containing dried fish wrapped in fine reed mats. These too must be counted, weighed, and recorded. Once, last spring, a peacock arrived from the south, a gift from a noble, hoping for favor. The bird was beautiful, but ill-suited to the cool air. It refused to eat and was gone within 2 weeks. But still, the cost of its cage, its feed, its caretaker's wages, all these had to be recorded. You remember entering it under miscellaneous, decorative beasts. You return to your desk by midday, where the light has shifted and your brushstrokes feel slower. It's time to check the tribute records, grain sent to the provinces, jade returned from merchants, and scrolls of calligraphy exchanged with the court of Song China. Even gifts are ledgered. Even poetry has a price. The most delicate part of your job comes next, estimating surplus. This is not just arithmetic, it is guesswork with a bow. How many sacks will be needed for next month's wedding at court? Will the visiting monks eat more than usual? Is the Empress expecting another gathering in the pavilion? You cannot ask, you can only predict. Afternoon comes, and with it, a light lunch of rice and pickled radish, eaten in silence at your desk. There is no dining hall for clerks, you eat beside your scrolls, careful not to stain them. Later, you are summoned to the upper floor, where the chief clerk reviews the main ledgers. His robe is darker than yours, his brush longer. He nods at your entries, occasionally tapping one with his fingernail. You make the corrections, not with shame, but with care. Numbers are like river stones, meant to be smoothed, not broken. By evening, your eyes ache slightly from the close script, and your hand feels stiff from the weightless repetition. But you are not rushed. This day, like every day, belongs to routine. You light a lantern and finish the last figure, the month's estimate for the lacquer shipments. You seal the scroll and tie it with blue string. It will be stored in the north alcove, beside ledgers that go back 6 emperors. No one reads the old scrolls often, but they are kept faithfully, silently, because every number is a footprint, and every footprint is part of the story. As you return to your chamber, the courtyard is quiet. The sound of bells echoes from the temple side of the palace. Somewhere, a crane calls once, then falls silent. And in the ledgers behind you, the kingdom still balances, gently, precisely, and without a single coin exchanged by hand. There is a room in the eastern wing of the palace where voices rarely rise, and where time is not counted by bells, but by brushstrokes. The floorboards are worn smooth by quiet footsteps, and the windows are angled just right to let in a softened morning light. You enter barefoot, as always. Your robes rustle faintly. Your tools are already waiting. You are a court painter under the Goryeo Dynasty. Your hands do not shake, though they have painted thousands of petals, feathers, and faces. Every day begins the same. Grind the ink, prepare the silk or mulberry paper, and breathe until the pulse in your fingers calms. A trembling brush, even from joy, would ruin a peony. There are no grand speeches here. No one instructs you aloud. You know the instructions before they are ever voiced. The empress requests a screen of cranes. The crown prince wishes for his future bride's face to be sketched in soft profile. A monk has written a new verse, and it requires the perfect mountain. You sit cross-legged, as still as the statues in the Buddhist hall, and begin. Painting in the 10th century Korean court is not about flair or freedom. It is about restraint. The more invisible your choices, the better. A perfectly painted wisteria does not call attention to itself. It simply exists, flowing, suspended in ink and space. Today, you are painting a garden scene meant to flank a royal poem. The scroll lies open beside you, the brush poised in your hand. The ink smells faintly of soot and pine ash. You've already outlined the base. Now you fill it, slowly. The willow tree sways gently under your touch. The brush moves in one direction, then again, softer. You pause every few strokes to breathe, not to check your work. Your body must remain loose. Every bend of the wrist carries centuries of technique. Behind you, another painter mixes pigments from crushed jade, cinnabar, and oyster shell. He doesn't speak, but the sound of the grinding stone is calming, like distant thunder. You glance at the bowls of color. They shimmer like river stones in shallow light. As you move on to the pond's edge, your mind is not empty. It drifts, not with thoughts of ambition or desire or praise, but with memory. You once painted in a village shrine years ago, before the palace. The ink was rougher then, and you painted lotus blooms on wood. They faded fast. No one recorded your name. Now, each piece you make will be stored in a wooden cabinet beside sacred scrolls. But still, no one will say your name aloud. By midday, you rest your brush. A servant places a tray nearby, a bowl of broth, steamed rice, and a slice of dried pear. You eat slowly, your eyes fixed on the painting's curve. You've been staring so long that the white paper begins to feel like water. In the afternoon, a court official arrives with a sealed note. You bow and take it without question. A new commission. The Empress requests a fan painted with a scene of plum blossoms in snow, delicate yet enduring. You begin to imagine the scene: white petals, bare branches, a background of faint gray like mist. You know what she wishes to see, not the blossoms, but the space between them. Later, you work on a silk fan stretched tight over bamboo ribs. The fabric is smoother than paper. Your brush glides, but must not slip. Even a single blotch would ruin the piece. So you exhale like a breath into still water and continue. The snow is not painted as dots or lines. It is left blank, the absence of ink, the illusion of weightlessness. When you finish, you lay the fan aside to dry. You will not see the Empress hold it, but you imagine she will use it during a quiet afternoon under embroidered canopies, as musicians play slow strings in the background. She may glance at your blossoms, she may not, but your work will be there, soft, silent, precise. You rinse your brush in silence. The black ink trails into the bowl like a cloud. You wipe it clean on cloth, place it beside the others, and return your focus to the scroll. There is still more to finish. Behind you, the other painters move like shadows. No one speaks of inspiration here. That is not your concern. Your concern is form and flow and stillness. The day ends without announcement. You know it only because the light has shifted and the floor feels cooler beneath your knees. You roll the scroll gently, tie it with a silk cord, and place it in the lacquered box prepared for it. You bow to the room, out of habit more than ritual. As you walk back to your small chamber, your fingers tingle faintly, not from fatigue, but from memory of the brush, the ink, the page that absorbed more than pigment. It absorbed you, and tomorrow you will do it all again. There is a sound that holds the rhythm of the palace, a deep, resonant chime that drifts through the misty courtyards, across tiled roofs, through silk-curtained corridors, and past the ears of sleeping servants. It is not loud, and it is not fast, but it divides the day as surely as the sun. That sound is your responsibility. You are the palace bell-keeper, a quiet figure beneath a wide-brimmed hat, wrapped in dull blue cloth, carrying the weight of time not in numbers or gears, but in rope, rhythm, and ear. In the 10th century Goryeo palace, there are no clocks in the sense we know today. There are clepsydras, water clocks, and incense clocks that burn at a steady pace, but none of those speak. Only your bell does that. You awaken well before dawn, just as the stars begin to fade. The air is thick with chill. Your small chamber smells of soot and wax. A single oil lamp glows beside your folded robe. Your body moves slowly, joints still stiff from yesterday's repetitions. First, you wash. The water is cold. There's no fire lit yet in the bell tower. You scrub your face, your hands, your arms, not out of vanity, but because every movement of the bell must be done with precision, and sweat, grease, or dust on your palms could cause the rope to slip, and time cannot slip, not here. You dress in layers of plain linen. The hem is always tied precisely. The sash must not be too loose. It mustn't flap when you walk the spiral stairs. Your sandals are thick with dust from the stone steps. You do not clean them. Dust is expected. Your tools are simple. A measuring cord made of braided silk and twine, knotted at intervals. An incense stick, prepared to burn a known distance per bell cycle. A wax tablet with the ceremonial times written on it. And your ears, always your ears. At the base of the bell tower, the door creaks open. No one else is ever here this early. Not even the kitchen fires are lit. The silence wraps around you like a shawl. The kind of silence that isn't really empty. It hums with the breath of buildings, the creak of beams, the faint shift of birds in the eaves. The tower's stairs are narrow, spiraling like the shell of a sleeping snail. You know every notch in the stone by heart. As you climb, your hand brushes the wall for balance. You never rush. Your rhythm is more important than your speed. At the top, the great bell waits. It is bronze, taller than a man, and cast with dragons that swirl around its sides. The inscriptions speak of peace, time, and the names of rulers long buried. But you do not read them anymore. You know the bell's voice better than its letters. Its tone is deep, slow, and low. Like a mountain breathing, you check the ropes. The pull system is arranged like a harp of tension. One knot slightly shifted can tilt the stroke. You examine the wooden beam, the striker, hung carefully on its cord. Everything is ready. You light the incense. This one will burn for precisely 2/4 of the early hour. Enough time for the first chime, a pause, then a second. The scent is dry and herbal. You lean close, watching the ash form. You feel it in your nose before it touches your ears. Then you pull the cord. The striker swings, not fast, but with a ponderous grace. It hits the bell with a sound that seems to grow rather than strike, like a note pulled from deep inside the world. The vibration runs through the wood, your feet, your bones. A deer in the woods would pause. A guard down the corridor stands straighter. A scribe uncurls his scroll. Time has begun. You pause. You do not rush the next stroke. In the stillness, you listen to the echo fade. Not entirely, but until it becomes memory. Only then do you move again. The second strike is lighter, echoing the first, but not overpowering it, like a breath after a sentence. When the incense burns halfway, you lower the beam and rest. The bell will not ring again for another hour, but you do not leave. You sit on the small cushion by the window, where you can see the palace roofs stretched in mist. You sip a little barley tea, still warm from the flask you carried up. Below, the palace begins to move. Servants light lanterns. The first courtyard doors creak open. Distant footsteps scatter like leaves. You mark it all with your ears, not as a listener, but as a keeper. Throughout the day, your cycle repeats. Every bell stroke you deliver is part of a system. Some mark rituals, others meals, some the change of guards, others the ceremonial bows at the Empress's court. Each strike must be as steady as the last. It cannot be sharp, it must not startle. Time should soothe, it should flow, not stab. At midday, another incense stick is lit, this one longer. The heat is stronger now, and you must adjust the tension of the rope as humidity stretches fibers. You touch the silk cord. It feels different than it did at dawn. That is the kind of thing only you would notice. No one thanks you for it. That's not your place. You strike again. This time, as the echo rolls out, you think about what the bell does. It doesn't just signal events, it replaces thinking. It frees others from wondering. They don't ask what hour it is. They wait for you to tell them, and you do, in a tone older than any word. At dusk, you ring the evening bell. It is softer. The bats begin to flutter. The air smells faintly of fish soup from the kitchen windows below. You allow yourself a longer pause after this chime. It's your favorite, but your day is not over. At night, you light a tiny lamp and sit beside the bell in case of special signals. Sometimes the court needs a midnight alert. Sometimes there is a secret council. You remain present, like the moon on cloudy nights, unseen but known. You think of all the people whose days unfold by your rhythm. The concubine arranging her robe at dawn, the monk bowing during evening prayer, the guard who shifts his spear at each echo, the cook who stirs her rice to the count of 2 bell notes. They all live by your sound. You do not wear ribbons. You have no painted fan. But time is shaped by you, and time shapes everything. As the stars return and the bell cools in the night air, you rest your hand on its side. It hums, still, with the last note. You don't know if anyone else hears it, but to you, it's still singing. And in the quiet, you sleep, not with dreams, but with echoes. The palace has quieted now. The last of the ceremonial bows have been counted. The scrolls are rolled and sealed with wax. The echoes of the evening bell have faded into the corners of the tiled eaves. In the fading light, even the swallows have tucked their heads beneath their wings. And it is in this stillness, not in the drumbeat of war or the declarations of state, that the final part of palace life unfolds. The retreat, the private disappearance into silk and slumber. Here, in the 10th century Goryeo palace, even sleep has its choreography. You do not sleep when you wish. You do not choose your mattress, nor the position of your pillow. You do not light your own lamp to read, or tuck yourself in with a sigh. Sleep is prepared, presented, a kind of ceremony unto itself, orchestrated by invisible hands long before your eyes begin to close. The corridors are darker now, lit only by the flickering breath of paper lanterns. Their sides sway slightly, drawing soft halos of gold across lacquered pillars and cedar floors. Their light is not for seeing, it is for softening the walls, for whispering the night into place. A servant in quiet robes, always plain, always brown or blue, moves without footsteps across the floor. In her arms, a folded screen. It is made of rice paper, stretched across bamboo ribs, painted with cranes, pine needles, and the rising moon. She places it gently across the opening of a sleeping chamber, turning a public corner into a private world. Inside, the space is simple. Wooden floors, one ceramic lamp, a low platform of polished wood and red mats. On top of this, a folded cotton quilt. Above, no ceiling fans or rafters, just sloping tiled roofs, resting above timber beams, older than any servant who walks these halls. You are a lower-ranking palace resident, perhaps a clerk or a junior tutor. You have a chamber, but not a room, of wealth. Your bedding is made from cotton stuffed with reeds. The pillow, a lacquered block filled with millet hulls, cool to the touch, supportive but not soft. It keeps the neck straight. There are no feathers here. If you were a noble, or, more importantly, the empress herself, your chamber would be larger, not just in size, but in silence. Nobles sleep not only in physical comfort, but in the comfort of distance, from noise, from responsibility, from interruption. In the Empress's wing, the quilts are embroidered with gold thread. Her sleeping robe, freshly steamed, is laid across a heated ceramic bedstone. There are no seams in the ceiling, no cracks for spiders to enter. The paper windows are double-layered. Her dreams are not disturbed by draft or hum, but you, in your quieter chamber, feel the breeze through the reed lattice. It brushes against your bare arms. You pull your robe tighter. You are not cold, not quite, but you are aware of the edge of comfort. It defines your place in the palace more surely than your name. Before you sleep, you complete one last task, bowing toward the center of the palace, not out of devotion, but habit, in the heart of the palace, where the throne room stands empty for the night. The spirit of the Goryeo court lingers, not as a ghost, but as a rhythm. The same rhythm that fills the bell-keeper's dreams, the candle-maker's fingertips, the seamstress's last stitch. You bow, not with flourish, but with quiet precision, palms flat, forehead low. Breathe out, then you lie down. Your robes serve as your sleeping garment. There is no disrobing. You turn onto your side, knees slightly bent, and your hands tucked beneath your pillow. A position taught to you in training, intended to align the body with the breath. It is not about rest, it is about order. From outside, you hear a soft click. The screen has been closed. Your chamber is now a sealed world. The oil lamp dims. Its last flicker casts shadows of pine needles against the far wall. They sway, just slightly, like the brush of wind in a forest. And still, the palace is not truly asleep. Down the corridor, someone is still sweeping. A small boy, apprenticed to the laundry hall, tidies shoes by the step. In the northern wing, a midwife tends to the cries of a new infant born to one of the concubines. A guard shifts his stance outside a doorway, his armor creaking like reeds. Even sleep is witnessed here. Even silence is shared. In the chamber next to yours, a scholar exhales over his scroll. He cannot sleep, not yet. He writes by firelight, a final note for tomorrow's meeting. His brush makes a sound like moth wings on silk. In the upper quarters, the Empress has already retired. Her sleeping fragrance, a sachet of ground lotus and clove, was prepared an hour before sunset. She sleeps with a jade pendant beneath her palm, as prescribed by custom. She will dream, perhaps, of a garden, of crane feathers and cucumber slices on silver plates. And yet, for all their difference in wealth, status, and chamber design, your sleep and hers are not so far apart. Both are surrounded by silence. Both are timed by the bell. Both are observed, guarded, measured. In dreams, you might walk the same gardens, or you might simply sleep undisturbed, wrapped in the hush of the palace that moves like breath through cedar and time. There is no alarm to wake you, only the bell. Its deep hum will slip into your chamber just before sunrise. It will enter before you even stir, and when it does, you will rise again. Fold your quilt, bow once, and begin the rhythm anew. For in the Goryeo Palace, life is not a story, it is a pattern, and the last thread of that pattern, each night, is sleep laid gently across the loom of silence until the next day begins. Good night. The story ends, but the silence remains. You have walked stone corridors, tended soft soil, tasted bread baked centuries ago in imagination, and listened to the echo of prayers you never needed to say aloud. You have sat by the flicker of candlelight, your fingers stained with ink that never dries in your memory. And now, as the final thoughts fade, you find yourself still, not empty, but calm. History does not shout. It hums, it rustles, it sighs. And if you listen closely, as you have tonight, it guides you gently toward rest. Tonight, you stepped through portals made not of wood or glass, but of memory and soft narrative. You wandered dusty courtyards and cold cloisters. You traced the edges of old manuscripts with your imagination. You smelled the earth after medieval rain. You heard the pages turn in the quiet of distant libraries. You paused beside weathered fountains where monks washed their hands before prayer. And you lingered in the stillness of stone-walled rooms that held only candlelight and time. You followed stories not for their excitement, but for their rhythm. And now, that rhythm continues, not with words, but with breath. A slow inhale, a deeper exhale. The way history rests in the folds of silence, you too can settle into the folds of night. The monks have gone to sleep. The bells have stopped ringing. The garden has folded itself into shadow. The words in the scriptorium have been written. The candles have gone out, and the night has deepened. And here you are, somewhere between then and now. There is no need to hold the facts tightly. You do not need to remember the Latin words, the names of herbs, the dates of worn-out kings or tired scribes. That is not why we returned to the past. We returned for something softer, for the comfort of rhythm, the repetition of lives once lived, the quiet certainty that no matter how hard or humble a day was, the sun still set and rose again. So much of history is hidden in the ordinary. Not the parades or the proclamations, but the quiet rituals. A monk tying his sandals, a mother brushing straw from a cot, a farmer's boots soaked from the morning dew, a child watching. Shadows stretch across stone, and you've been there with them. You've moved among them in the stillness. And now, in your own time, you can let go of the world again. The walls of time are thick, but not impenetrable. With every breath, you've slipped further into a sanctuary where centuries whisper. There's a sacred stillness in this place, the kind of quiet you feel in your bones, the kind that hums under your skin, like the last notes of a song you almost forgot. Your breath has slowed. Perhaps your eyes have closed, or perhaps they linger, blinking slowly in the darkness. There is no rush. Let the weight of the world lift a little now. Let the voices of the past fade into a low hum. Let the wind of time brush gently across your thoughts. You are not alone. Somewhere, across ages and continents, others have closed their eyes beneath a starless sky, on straw mattresses, or stone floors, or tucked tightly into woolen sheets. They, too, knew silence. They, too, listened to night. We so often think of the past as loud. It lived in the hush of early morning, in the scrape of bread on a wooden board, in the soft shuffle of footsteps in candlelit corridors. It lived in repetition, in the seasons returning, in the tasks done daily, year after year. And in that repetition, there was peace. So rest now in that peace. Let your thoughts soften. It's all right if your mind still wanders. If it returns to the story, let it. Let it drift back to the monastery walls, to the fields beyond, to the chapel's echo. Let it loop again and again if it wishes. There is no destination, only the quiet movement through time. The candle beside you has burned low. The ink has dried. Your quill rests beside your folded hands. You lean back. The stone wall behind you cools your skin. You listen. Outside, night creatures stir. A bird rustles in the rafters. The wind shifts through leaves. But inside, all is still. And in that stillness, you begin to fade, not in fear, but in trust. Trust in the rhythm of silence, in the continuation of breath, in the story told not in excitement, but in ease. History was not always made in battle or glory. Sometimes it was made by simply surviving a long winter, by copying one more page, by planting one more root, by folding hands in quiet prayer, by closing one's eyes at the end of a long day. Let yourself feel the weight of centuries lift. Let yourself belong to nothing but this moment. The fire has burned low in the hearth. Ash curls along the stone base. The moon sits high above the cloister roof, casting faint silver across the stones. No footsteps remain in the garden. No bells, no murmurs, only stillness. And in that stillness, the long breath of history continues. Time becomes soft. It slows. The urgency of modern life melts away, replaced by the timeless rhythm of centuries past. You do not need to remember everything. You do not need to understand it all. You only need to feel the quiet presence of the past resting beside. You. Let your limbs grow heavy. Let your thoughts drift. Let the night take you gently. The hum of history is like a lullaby, steady, soothing, slow. Perhaps you see an image in your mind, a lone candle flickering softly by a monk's elbow, a quiet courtyard under a slate-gray sky, a quill dipped in ink lifted with reverence, or a chapel door just barely ajar, letting in the hush of morning fog. These are the corners of history that soothe rather than stir. And still, even now, there are echoes not of voices, but of presence. The gentle hush of cloistered routines, the steady rhythm of feet on cold flagstones, the unbroken silence of stone arches bowing overhead. You have been walking through one long twilight, one long corridor of forgotten footsteps, and now you can pause, rest, breathe. There is nothing more to do. The work of the day is done. The past has been honored in this room, beneath these words, beneath this history. You are safe. You are still. You are home. And when your thoughts drift once more, they may return to this sanctuary, this echo of lives once lived, this comfort wrapped in old linen, old parchment, old prayer. This is the end of this story, but not the end of rest. Let the quiet take you. Let the hum of time carry you. Let the stillness of centuries soothe you. You do not need to stay awake for the rest. We will still be here when you return, when the next night falls, when history calls again, not loudly, but gently. And if you listen, you'll hear it in the shuffle of straw, the sigh of old stone, the scratch of a quill, the echo of bells long silenced, and the softness of a single breath before sleep. Good night, sleep well. The past is at peace, and now, so are you. The story ends, but the silence remains. You have walked stone corridors, tended soft soil, tasted bread baked centuries ago in imagination, and listened to the echo of prayers you never needed to say aloud. You have sat by the flicker of candlelight, your fingers stained with ink that never dries in your memory. And now, as the final thoughts fade, you find yourself still, not empty, but calm. History does not shout. It hums, it rustles, it sighs. And if you listen closely, as you have tonight, it guides you gently toward rest. Tonight, you stepped through portals made not of wood or glass, but of memory and soft narrative. You wandered dusty courtyards and cold cloisters. You traced the edges of old manuscripts with your imagination. You smelled the earth after medieval rain. You heard the pages turn in the quiet of distant libraries. You paused beside weathered fountains where monks washed their hands before prayer, and you lingered in the stillness of stone-walled rooms that held only candlelight and time. You followed stories not for their excitement, but for their rhythm. And now that rhythm continues, not with words, but with breath. A slow inhale, a deeper exhale. The way history rests in the folds of silence, you too can settle into the folds of night. The monks have gone to sleep. The bells have stopped ringing. The garden has folded itself into shadow. The words in the scriptorium have been written. The candles have gone out, and the night has deepened. And here you are, somewhere between then and now. There is no need to hold the facts tightly. You do not need to remember the Latin words, the names of herbs, the dates of worn-out kings or tired scribes. That is not why we returned to the past. We returned for something softer, for the comfort of rhythm, the repetition of lives once lived, the quiet certainty that no matter how hard or humble a day was, the sun still set and rose again. So much of history is hidden in the ordinary, not the parades or the proclamations, but the quiet rituals. A monk tying his sandals, a mother brushing straw from a cot, a farmer's boots soaked from the morning dew, a child watching. Shadows stretch across stone, and you've been there with them. You've moved among them in the stillness. And now, in your own time, you can let go of the world again. The walls of time are thick, but not impenetrable. With every breath, you've slipped further into a sanctuary where centuries whisper. There's a sacred stillness in this place. The kind of quiet you feel in your bones, the kind that hums under your skin, like the last notes of a song you almost forgot. Your breath has slowed. Perhaps your eyes have closed, or perhaps they linger, blinking slowly in the darkness. There is no rush. Let the weight of the world lift a little now. Let the voices of the past fade into a low hum. Let the wind of time brush gently across your thoughts. You are not alone. Somewhere, across ages and continents, others have closed their eyes beneath a starless sky, on straw mattresses, or stone floors, or tucked tightly into woolen sheets. They, too, knew silence. They, too, listened to night. We so often think of the past as loud. It lived in the hush of early morning, in the scrape of bread on a wooden board, in the soft shuffle of footsteps in candlelit corridors. It lived in repetition, in the seasons returning, in the tasks done daily, year after year. And in that repetition, there was peace. So rest now in that peace. Let your thoughts soften. It's all right if your mind still wanders. If it returns to the story, let it. Let it drift back to the monastery walls, to the fields beyond, to the chapel's echo. Let it loop again and again if it wishes. There is no destination, only the quiet movement through time. The candle beside you has burned low. The ink has dried. Your quill rests beside your folded hands. You lean back. The stone wall behind you cools your skin. you listen. Outside, night creatures stir. A bird rustles in the rafters. The wind shifts through leaves, but inside all is still. And in that stillness, you begin to fade, not in fear, but in trust. Trust in the rhythm of silence, in the continuation of breath, in the story told not in excitement, but in ease. History was not always made in battle or glory. Sometimes it was made by simply surviving a long winter, by copying one more page, by planting one more root, by folding hands in quiet prayer, by closing one's eyes at the end of a long day. Let yourself feel the weight of centuries lift. Let yourself belong to nothing but this moment. The fire has burned low in the hearth. Ash curls along the stone base. The moon sits high above the cloister roof, casting faint silver across the stones. No footsteps remain in the garden. No bells, no murmurs, only stillness. And in that stillness, the long breath of history continues. Time becomes soft. It slows. The urgency of modern life melts away, replaced by the timeless rhythm of centuries past. You do not need to remember everything. You do not need to understand it all. You only need to feel the quiet presence of the past resting beside. You. Let your limbs grow heavy. Let your thoughts drift. Let the night take you gently. The hum of history is like a lullaby, steady, soothing, slow. Perhaps you see an image in your mind, a lone candle flickering softly by a monk's elbow, a quiet courtyard under a slate-gray sky, a quill dipped in ink lifted with reverence, or a chapel door just barely ajar, letting in the hush of morning fog. These are the corners of history that soothe rather than stir. And still, even now, there are echoes not of voices, but of presence. The gentle hush of cloistered routines, the steady rhythm of feet on cold flagstones, the unbroken silence of stone arches bowing overhead. You have been walking through one long twilight, one long corridor of forgotten footsteps, and now you can pause, rest, breathe. There is nothing more to do. The work of the day is done. The past has been honored in this room, beneath these words, beneath this history. You are safe. You are still. You are home. And when your thoughts drift once more, they may return to this sanctuary, this echo of lives once lived, this comfort wrapped in old linen, old parchment, old prayer. This is the end of this story, but not the end of rest. Let the quiet take you. Let the hum of time carry you. Let the stillness of centuries soothe you. You do not need to stay awake for the rest. We will still be here when you return, when the next night falls, when history calls again, not loudly, but gently. And if you listen, you'll hear it in the shuffle of straw, the sigh of old stone, the scratch of a quill, the echo of bells long silenced, and the softness of a single breath before sleep. Good night, sleep well. The past is at peace, and now, so are you.